we are gathered here today for a mournful occasion. The book friend from the channel, formerly known as Ferdinand, the pile of books that I had behind me for the last few videos, has been unmade and deceased. And now, as you can see behind me, my books are once again organized on my shelf, and my office is honestly way more organized and clean in general. But for the Ferdinand fans, just know I don't miss him at all, and I hated him while he was here. Nevertheless, today we're here for an Unhaul video. We're talking about the list of books that I got rid of, and if you happen to live in eastern Nebraska, look around in one of those little libraries in neighborhoods where you take a book, leave a book near you. We dumped them all in a little library. But let's go ahead and talk about the list of books that I got rid of and the various reasons why I unhauled them. The first book on the list is Cinder by Marissa Meyer, and this is not a book that I have any problem with. It is a YA science fiction retelling of Cinderella, and each of the books in this series, the Lunar Chronicles, is a sci-fi retelling of a different fairy tale, but they're actually all connected into the Lunar Chronicles. I actually really like the series, and it's one that I'm in the midst of finishing. However, my dear sweet friend and sometimes enemy, Alan Walker from the channel Library of Alexandria, sent me as a late Christmas gift the entirety of the Lunar Chronicles with the good covers, the ones that I like, not the ones that I dislike. And because of that, I had 2 copies of Cinder, so I unhauled it. I do actually have horribly made reading vlogs for both Cinder and Scarlet, the second book of the series. I have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to vlogs, and so I think those are my only 2 attempts. They did not perform well, and I do not blame them because I made them very poorly. I've enjoyed reading vlogs. I do not enjoy the one that I made. It was very bad. Nevertheless, I did enjoy the books themselves. So I am planning on finishing the Lunar Chronicles at some point, but I have a full collection of another set, so I unhauled my original copy of Cinder. The second book on this list that I unhauled was Illuminate by Kristoff and Amy Kaufman, and this was a book that on paper sounded awesome. It was a book that was written entirely in what I believe is described as epistolary format, like in-world text messages and memorandum, like the entire book is told from items that would exist within the world. And it's a really cool idea. I don't know how much of it is spoiler and how much of it is not of a spoiler, but it is a really cool idea for a trilogy. And I think it's one of those trilogies that the same events are actually told from different perspectives. That's what the whole thing is. Nevertheless, this is my first experience with Kristoff's writing. I don't know how much of the book was Kristoff for sure, and I don't know how much of the book was Amy Kaufman. However, what I do know is I very much disliked a significant portion of the writing and tone of the writing. In hindsight, like the longer I thought about the book, I gave it 3 stars, but the longer I thought about the book, the more I was annoyed by some of the annoying parts. And then seeing examples of other types of Kristoff works and seeing examples and snippets that people have sent me of Kristoff's writings, I just don't think he's a writer that will jive with me in any serious way. I have made jokes about reading a Kristoff book as a joke before, but I don't think that he is an author that really clicks with me. So Kristoff and Illuminate have actually been the butt of jokes multiple times on this channel. I finally got rid of it. It's a beautiful copy. It's in really good condition and the book looks awesome, and I love the idea of this epistolary format story, if that's the right word for what it's called. But I did not like the book. I would never plan on reading it again. I had 0 interest in reading book 2 or 3 from the trilogy as well. Next up was Play Dead by Ted Dekker, which I have a full review for here on the channel, and you can check that out if you want to. Ted Dekker is an author that I have a love-hate relationship with. Some of his books and themes I think are amazing, and some of his books I find really annoying on like a religious connection level because he is a Christian published author. And I go into detail about the specifics of the problems that I have with Play Dead. It was an enjoyable book. It is a book that I got through pretty quickly, and I had fun reading it. However, I ended up getting really annoyed with the thematic elements of the book and the way they were presented. Like I said, specifics in that original review. Next up is the book The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. This was my first experience with V.E. Schwab, and I do have a review for this on my channel, but if I remember correctly, this book was written beautifully. There were parts of it that I loved. I enjoyed following the character around, but it was too long, and the way the characters interacted and the way they developed throughout the world, I found to be a little bit, I think the word I might have used was pompous. I may have used the word pretentious, but it's essentially like a really stuck up French character that like exists solely within like a world where like rich artsy hipsters do rich artsy hipsters things, and everything else is sort of ignored in a way that I didn't love, but I didn't hate, but I most certainly didn't want to read the entire book again for that story. Plus, I think I've wiped it from my brain, but I'm almost positive the end of that book was just buck wild. I think it revolved around this Faustian bargain with deal with the devil, which I guess is what it's like the most redundant thing I've ever said in this video. But the whole thing is that she can live life forever, but nobody can remember her. And I'm almost positive that there's like inconsistencies with the way that that curse works. And then, yes, now I remember the actual ending of the book was something that I thought was contrived. I don't know. I guess the conclusion was it wasn't for me. Some people love it. I'm not ever planning on checking it out again. So give it to somebody else, right? Next up is The Shadows by Alex North. Now, this is the second novel by Alex North, the first one being The Whisper Man, which was really big the year it came out. I think it was 2019. I read The Whisper Man, and I have a weird relationship with The Whisper Man where I ended up giving it 3 stars out of 5. And I really enjoyed going through The Whisper Man start to finish, but there were some issues that I had where a lot of times when I'm reading a thriller or a mystery book, I enjoy it, but I don't love it. I have no problems being invested in the story from start to finish, but when it leaves, I don't really think about it all that much. Alex North's book, The Whisper Man, did stick with me longer, but I think it's because of some negative tropes that it has. And so, because of that, I'm going to have to talk about spoilers for The Whisper Man and spoilers for The Shadows by Alex North. So if you do not want to hear spoilers for either of those things, you're going to have to skip ahead. I will probably put a timestamp in this thing so you can see where you're supposed to skip those spoilers. But here we go. Spoilers for The Shadows by Alex North and The Whisper Man by Alex North. My least favorite thing when I'm reading a thriller is when supernatural, magical, paranormal elements are teased within a story and then it ends up being the Scooby-Doo effect where a mask is ripped off and everything is explained logically. I understand that that is something that appeals to a lot of people, but it does not appeal to me as someone that enjoys science fiction and fantasy. So, when I am reading a book that teases something cool and then gives me something less cool, that's really lame. That is the equivalent of if you were taken to the dentist by your mother and your mother promises to give you ice cream if you are good at the dentist, and instead of ice cream, she gives you a single piece of okra. What on earth kind of bad deal is that? That's how I felt about The Whisper Man. I did not read The Shadows by Alex North, but my wife did, and when she got to the end, she said, yeah, the author did the exact same thing again. There were teased elements of supernatural paranormal things. It ended up just being all real and whatever. That is something that I tend to dislike anytime I'm reading a book, ever. Next up was The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. And this was a book that I had internally hyped myself up for so strongly because the vibes that I was getting from reading about the synopsis of this book were this person who's down on their luck, goes to try to find a job at a weird motel at the edge of town, and mysterious things start happening. There might be a murder involved, and there could be some special paranormal elements. Now, that appeals to me so strongly that I was hoping I was going to love this book. And when I read it, I was disappointed quite a bit. Once again, this is a book similar to The Shadows that I read through extremely quickly and I didn't have any problem with like getting through the story, but the ending was so disappointing on such a strong level that I really don't think I'd ever want to read it again. I wouldn't recommend it because of the specific thing, and I will talk about the thing specifically coming up here. So I will put a timestamp in the video for if you want to skip spoilers for The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. Spoilers are going to be starting now. So I mentioned before in The Shadows by Alex North that I very much like the Scooby-Doo effect where everything turns out to be real when they tease supernatural elements. The Sundown Motel is almost like a bad reverse effect of that, where the supernatural elements that are teased throughout the story end up being real. There are ghosts, there are supernatural things happening, and it is real within the context of the world. However, none of them make a significant bearing in the actual plot. There are ghosts that are talking about this murder that happens. This person ends up solving a murder kind of with the help of a ghost, but also kind of not, because they just use regular natural ways to solve the crime to figure out everything. And you're also exploring the scene from flashbacks to the past. So while you get both supernatural elements and you also get this mystery thriller murder solving, they don't have anything to do with each other. And I don't know if that's worse or better than the Scooby-Doo effect, but I was still super frustrated when I finished the Sundown Motel because of how inconsequential what I thought the cool bits ended up being. And the final book that we have on this list today is Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. Now, Riley Sager is an author who I've never read. He's a popular thriller writer. I believe one of my good friends here on this platform, Casey from the channel Lost in a Bookcase, actually really loved this book. My sister also really loves Riley Sager books. The problem is when I talked to other people that had read this book that know the types of things that bother me in books, they alerted me that this book has a similar problem to other books that I've described previously. Spoilers for Riley Sager's Home Before Dark, same thing, timestamps in the description if you want to skip that, but spoilers for Riley Sager's Home Before Dark, I've been told coming up now. I've been told it was another book with a Scooby-Doo effect where everything seems like it's going to be supernatural and horror-y and magic-y, and it ends up just not being that at all. So once again, it was another book with the same exact trope. This should be something that I should be watching out for. I've been fooled by it quite a few times. You know, it's one of those things like fool me once, shame on you. Fool me this many times with these books, I gotta unhaul them. So yeah, that's the unhaul video. Those are all the books that I got rid of when I went through and cleaned up Ferdinand and straightened out my shelves. I now have at the bottom here on this shelf, these are the books that have been given to me either by authors or by just people that watch the channel or by friends that I have. And I really would like to prioritize getting through some of these books that I've been given. I am very, very grateful when people choose to share books with me, so I want to prioritize getting through some of these as we go. I will be making a video of all of these books and which one of them that I should prioritize going forward into the future. If you'd like to see that video, please subscribe to the channel and check it out when I release it. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing, and of course, leave a comment down below if you have beef with anything that I said here. What did you think about any of the books that I unhauled here if you read them? And once again, if you are in Eastern Nebraska, they could be in a little library near you. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. I love you all. Goodbye. This one goes out to Ferdinand. Y'all loved him. I freaking hated his guts. Ferdinand, Ferdinand, Ferdinand. Ferdinand, my book friend, Frankenstein his body from collecting all these random books. I did a tag and then I failed it. Had to make a stack taller than myself with the organized sets on my freaking bookshelf. Ferdinand, my book friend, represent my grace and roll the day, then I got to stack in, making something bigger than myself, then embody my shame to display him. Now I slice the dragon and fillet him. Ferdinand, Ferdinand, Ferdinand.